So you're looking to grow and scale your therapy practice. That's what we're here to talk about today. We're in our leverage series. If you're just tuning into this video, there should be kind of like 4 to 5 talking about the 4 C's of leverage. Today we're unpacking code. We're talking about software, we're talking about code, we're talking about the great wide open spaces of software and all that is possible in 2025 with it and why it is in the top 4 of leverage points. So we're really excited to dive into this one because it's just beyond important for you to understand as a business practice owner far more than as a therapist or a clinical delivery person.
Yeah. Code, guys, is software, right? It's either software that exists already and you're renting, it's software or code that you're developing, it's software or code that you're somehow implementing into your practice. And when it boils down to it, code is massively scalable compared to something like a person's time, right? You can have a person sit down, do a thing like build an automation and or a template or something, and then it's just usable from then on. And when you go and you make a change, you just change the template and then you
Yeah.
see if you improve or don't improve. And so these types of things allow you to move at an incredible pace. And there's pros and cons to it. I think the pros are that it's awesome and people want to use them, and there's a lot of new stuff coming out. And I think the cons are just that if you're not open to learning new systems, you're never going to be able to tap into this. Many of these systems, like, yeah, you can go out. Maybe some of you are interested in like code or logic or some of those other elements, or maybe some of you are just like a little bit tech savvy. But some of you guys might be like, don't touch me, don't touch that with the 10-foot stick, right? And it's okay either way, but if you're open to learning and you're open to implementing, it's going to maybe lift a huge burden off of your shoulders as a practice owner. Even just 6 months to a year of just immersion on code type things will allow you to really execute at a high level in many of these facets.
At the end of the day, given where we're at with business building and practice building, leveraging code is more or less a necessity for you to reach your goals. I think if you're more on the spectrum of small solo practice, there's probably a possibility of leveraging, more in-person, real-world based networks. But the larger you get, we're talking software platforms, AI usage, HR platforms, CRMs, right? The larger you get, by design, you have to leverage code and software to get where you want to go. And I want to focus us on where we should use it and where we should not use it. It's kind of three core elements. There's your clients, there's your clinicians, and there's your culture. And those three things, your clients, your clinicians, and your culture, are largely people driven. Using code might be able to manage certain elements like, your HR software that might make payroll easy and other things, sure. But largely, like, those are elements that are really important, that are real, living, and made manifest, not by AI. AI is not going to be able to create your culture deck for you and have it mean anything, right? Like, you have to imbue that and maybe use the tool to make that happen. Everything else, though, if it's not have to do with client delivery, if it doesn't have to do with your team culture, and if it doesn't have to do with your clinicians management, I believe is free game for leveraging code, automation, and AI because your goal is to free yourself, your managers, and everyone else in the practice free up time to spend more on the parts that you can't use code to leverage. So a different way to say is every minute you spend on things that code could do for you or leverage for you, you're stealing that from an area of the practice that code cannot leverage for you and needs a human element to make it successful.
I'm going to add consistency onto that too, right? It's like if you have an automation that you're running and it always sends a new client an email when they submit their onboarding paperwork, and the email is just all the instructions that they need for their entry point, like, you know that your clients are getting taken care of because they are receiving this message. And
Yeah.
so how much consistency is it creating? What does that mean for your company? I mean, there's just so much baked in here. And so when it comes down to it, I think we love code. And so how do we do this? I think if you're just kind of like starting from the top, you need to take the time to learn. Learn a little bit about the code that you're using or that you're deploying or you plan on deploying. Learn about what platforms exist for private practice in this case. And then learn about the types of actions that you can typically do in a platform if you're borrowing it, or if you're really interested in developing something yourself, maybe learn about how all of the pieces of code kind of stack together or work together.
Yeah.
From the learning diving point, you have to build something. Okay, so you have to take the time to actually execute on what you've learned. And this is kind of like an ongoing process, right? You might be learning for a long time. Some of you guys might be tech inclined, and you might, it might only take you a month, and you might be like deep in it and excited, and you kind of get it, and you know what to do, and you understand the segments. But some of you, this might take for a long time to learn and just continue to build and just chip away at your systems, and then finally just implement those items, right? So once you've learned, you're building, and then you're implementing those items. That's how you're really taking something from uh, a abstract point to something that's actually working for you. And it's easy enough once something's implemented to just kind of go in and make little tweaks, error handle. Sometimes you can find contractors. You might even be able to find integrators or contractors to help you with the building or the other segments in there. Every practice is a little bit different, so don't be afraid to kind of figure it out. That's kind of the point of this. But once it's figured out, you have a system that works for you.
Yeah. 2 years ago, we wouldn't have been having the conversation of software apps and software tools and its juxtaposition to AI usage, tools, and outcomes. But today, we get to have the benefit of talking about both layers. So we're going to quickly talk about just software, probably more the code that you guys currently leverage in your practice. We'll spend a little bit more time in talking about AI and where and how you should leverage that for your practice. We have some other longer form pieces of content on AI especially. So go check those out in our YouTube channel or otherwise. On just kind of like an overall software level, say yes to a software stack. I think that's my first takeaway. Go through the different parts of your business. Probably have an EHR like Simple Practice and JNAP, but look at the practices you admire. Look at the practices you want to grow into and just ask yourself, what softwares do they have by necessity? What softwares have they added that enabled their growth? I think the next one down is something like a CRM. Is some practice owners built a really successful practice, but they came back to adding in a CRM, and new practices are building a customer relationship manager for their practice as a 2025 and beyond tool needed for success. You probably didn't need a CRM in this business in quite the same way 15 years ago, based off of industry trends, clients need, email marketing requirements. You do today. So look at your kind of minimum viable software stack from an EHR, project management like Monday or Asana, bookkeeping like QuickBooks, or using like a pseudo software service like Herd, clinical retention tracking. This is kind of a new one. We love Practice Vital. You can get a discount using Therapy Flow if you tell them we sent your way. But it tracks all your clinical retention data on how well your clinicians are doing. Might not have needed that 5 years ago, or when you had two clinicians. Now that you have 20, that might be something you need to look into. And we use a lot of other things: Canva, Google Keyword Search Planner, Spotify for the office, Notion for internal tracking documents, Zapier for a whole bunch of things. On the list goes, but examine your practice right now and ask yourself, where is time going? Where are repeatable tasks showing up? Or if I could make this just a little bit better, a little bit both more personalized and automatic, where would I go to house all this data? Or what tool would I use? And there's probably more software than you're currently utilizing to make that happen and free yourself up on just the software tool piece.
Yeah. If you guys are feeling overwhelmed, that's okay and totally normal. And I'm here to maybe tell you that the first two things that are the originators for most of your data for your practice is going to be your EHR and your CRM. So
Yeah.
managing everything before someone becomes a client. So for practices that are getting inquiries on a regular basis. CRM is going to help you manage everything and work those contacts. And then for people who are getting clients currently, an EHR is going to help you manage and hold all the data that you need for your clinicians and for your practice, billing, those types of things. And then from there stems the other guys, right? So like once you maybe have these two big guys in place, the EHR and your CRM, then maybe it makes sense to have like an aggregate data pool. Or maybe it starts making sense to have some data analysis on that aggregate data pool. And then maybe it starts making sense to have, so you start just adding based on your practice's needs, and feeling totally normal. Sorry, I think I bumped my mic here. I hope you guys can still hear me. Is totally normal, but not addressing the problem and kind of attacking it. I'll use the language attacking the problem. It's just doing yourself a disservice. It's putting yourself behind and not implementing and just starting to put those things together, like start doing the good hygiene habits. Is just making it so that you're flying blind, essentially, in a world where you really just need information to make great decisions.
Yeah. When we talk about this conversation with AI, I kind of view it as the difference between emerging from a tool-based environment with code to a full-blown machine-based environment. We've got a 4-year-old at home, and he loves going through the automatic car wash. Pull your car up, your wheel locks in. 5 minutes later, it's pulled you through the whole thing, start to finish. Someone has to make sure the machine was built and runs, but otherwise, that's going to cycle through hundreds of cars an hour, whatever it is, to appropriately make that successful. And that's from a tool like a brush and a bucket and everything needed for hand washing cars to a machine. AI already in lots of environments, and even more so what will come in the next 12 to 18 months from this state, moves so many mechanisms to a machine-like experience where it can own start to finish the entire process. And so start immerging yourself in the usage of these starting tools, moving to machines now, so that way you can be prepared to utilize them better. And again, it goes back to the clients, care, and culture, things that humans really need to be involved in this space. And just ask yourself, how can I get rid of everything else and build the machine to cover those pieces? A couple of suggestions for you guys today and where to start. One feature we really like at Therapy Flow and talk about with our practices are custom GPTs. With like ChatGPT, with a premium account, you can build a GPT. You can give it a bunch of initial instructions. You can feed it a bunch of initial source data, and it can do certain amount of tasks or content formatting in particular ways. So whether that's feeding it specific content that it will edit and pump out for you, giving all of your clinical information and doing a little therapist matchup on the fly, or your intake members being able to ask questions about your clinical team, so they have a chat-based knowledge base, which is way better than filtering through an Excel file. Tons of ways to utilize custom GPTs, even for things like social media, for brand, for voice, for blog generation, taking that content generation a step further to your voice, to your brand, to your practice is helpful in some great ways.
Yeah. The really cool thing about AI is how it's progressing right now. It's generative, right? So it's generating a lot of material for us all. And that also means that you can get creative even with having it code for you.
Yeah.
You can have it create ideas for you. You can have it come up with maybe support documents or support articles. And so don't feel like most, I think it's like 96% of all material has now been that AI is trained on is actually AI built at this point, because AI can create so much material, and then you just edit and then train the model on what you want to edit. So let's say you're coming up with a chat bot for your website to ask or to be able to answer some frequently asked questions. And some frequently asked questions, you're like, I don't even know where to start with those frequently asked questions. Well, have it prompt you, tell it to ask you a set of questions that a customer might ask for while they're looking on a therapy website for a new therapist. You can go in and answer, and or have it create ideas for you, and then you can go in and edit, and then you can feed it to your GPT the way that you want.
Yeah. A couple other things that we are running consistently with our practice owners is really fast moving, like forecasting maps and projections without having to dig into spreadsheets at all. Download data from some simple practice, de-identify it, or just look at revenue numbers or pull that from your payment processor. The ability to ask questions about your own data and get real-time answers. Run the equivalent of these math word problems. Hey, if I brought on 10 counselors doing XY sessions a week based off of these types of room requirements that are initially in my practice and our average cost per square foot in our market, how much am I looking at investing in real estate and build out in the next year to facilitate my real estate expansion? I don't know what answers you need for your practice, but the cool thing is if you know the question you want to ask and you have access to the raw data, dumping that into an AI model, you'll get those answers way faster than if you had to sort through those pieces and build the model and run it all yourself. And I've moved way faster with projections, with outcomes, with other things on the fly with our practice owners and for our own business today as a result. As we kind of wrap up this segment, that the bottom line is we will not be the most creative individuals, Attilio and I, on how you should use AI for your practice. And 3 months from now, 6 months from now, with this one specifically, it's going to fundamentally change. Canva's coming out with image generation models that are out of this world, video generation models, content forecasting tools. We're really excited to see where this goes. So start using them in all the great ways you can and innovate for your practice and say yes to those layers. See you guys next time.
Love